Today's guest brings a rare blend of New York energy, academic depth, and real world experience to the conversation. From an early start in education to an unexpected detour that shaped his outlook, he's built a career around helping people think differently and approach challenges with clarity. Known for turning complicated ideas into something approachable, he's helped countless students unlock confidence, sharpen their thinking, and discover what truly drives them. Please welcome Brian Corridan, a teacher, mentor, a thinker with a refreshingly human approach to learning. Hi, Brian.
Hello, what a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course, and I was so glad that you're able to say yes to my invite, being a
Yes.
guest. So I know you've taught SAT prep thing for my son,
Yes,
and
of course.
Ikshan told a lot of good things about you, and he was really impressed with you. And I was like, maybe Ikshan, he should be our guest. And here we are.
Here we are, making the connection. I love it. Yep.
Exactly. So, Brian, I know we talked about you a lot previously, and I would like to share journey you had with my audience. So we'll
Of
start
course.
off with a few questions.
Sure.
My first question to you is: you were born in Manhattan while being raised in Connecticut, influenced by a compassionate, practical mother and a logical academic father.
Yeah.
How did this mix of environments and personalities shape the person you've become?
Absolutely. I attribute a lot to my parents. I do value that tremendously. My college admissions essay, actually, for Columbia was about the role of nature and nurture in someone's upbringing and how much I valued getting both of that from my parents. The nature, I kind of have a bit of my father's kind of joie de vivre and is paired with his very mathematical brain, whereas I have my mother's compassionate practicality. They're a little different in that way. She was a nurse for 50 years. He was a hospital administrator, but sometimes he has a bit more of the feminine energy, sometimes she has more of the masculine energy. So it was an interesting dynamic, I think, to be raised both New Yorkers. Mom is from Hicksville, so not super far from you. And my dad was born and raised in Manhattan, so we moved to Connecticut when I was pretty young, after my two sisters were born, and but remained very close to the city. So had my parents' New York influence. The city's influence was always very prevalent too, and they're pretty cosmopolitan people. So whether it was museums or art or theater, it was a really good upbringing. I'm grateful for them. I know it's not everyone's experience, so I don't take it for granted.
Very nice. Um, so you were very ambitious from an early age,
Yeah.
valedictorian, theater, leadership, and getting into Columbia, the
Hmm.
only college you applied. What
Yes.
drove you and what drew you to study psychology, particularly your fascination with understanding the human mind?
Yeah, so I worked with kids my whole time during adolescence. I was a camp counselor. I did after school programs. So I think, again, my mother is a nurse. There's a lot of that kind of compassionate understanding of people's behavior and the trauma responses and seeing that. And the way she would raise us was, I think, really guided a lot by those principles that you need as a trauma nurse in New York City in the 70s, 80s. So just understanding that the world isn't quite so black and white and that there are things that are more shades of gray and people's motivations, understandings, things like that always did fascinate me. So when I got to school, when I applied to Columbia, got into Columbia and needed a major, psychology felt like a pretty good place to go. I think everyone could benefit from just, if not majoring in psychology, at least taking a class or two in human behavior. Columbia turned out to be very research heavy institution, so there was a lot of the neuroscience approach and a lot of the studies and research approach. I was always a little bit more toward the humanistic side of the therapy and the understanding. But I think everyone would benefit. I think the world would just be a better place if everyone had a little bit of understanding of people's differences and cultures and perspectives and backgrounds and why they think the way they do and what factors have influenced their minds. And you just have a broader understanding and maybe a bit more compassion.
Hmm, very nice. I know you. I remember you told you did some kind of internship while being in
Yeah, I
education.
did. That's right. I worked with, yeah, it was tough. Well, that's what I was, I believe, saying to you about how while I was at school, I did interned a couple times throughout my junior and senior year as I was getting closer to graduation, working with some underprivileged students. Kind of Columbia is very far north in Manhattan, so it was easy to just jump up to the Bronx. Worked with some privileged students too, through the spectrum. And yeah, that's when I sort of started to realize, oh, as a career, this might be heavy for me. It's tough for
Mm,
me to separate work from home. And in a job as deep and heavy as working with, especially my focus was adolescent psychology. So working with adolescents, you just can't stop thinking at the end of the day, like, how are they doing? Are their parents receptive to what I was saying to them? Is there a path forward for this kid? And it's a heavy thing to sit home when you're back on your couch trying to watch TV and your mind is racing. And I realized, oh, this is going to be a tough thing for me to do for the rest of my life. I don't think I'm well equipped at that boundary setting, mentally anyway. And so that's when I kind of pivoted to doing SAT prep, which I had done as a part-time job at Columbia, and
mm.
thought, I really enjoy that. That might be a path to ticking a few important boxes as far as careers go for me.
Right. Looks like it literally consumed you, so you felt like maybe there's a different path for you, which was
Yeah.
SAP eventually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very nice. Very interesting about you was the survival participation. So you've had a unique story with Survivor,
Yeah.
which really amazed me. Can you walk us through it from applying to competing and what you learned from that experience?
That was a great time. So I thought that was going to solve all my problems. I was a 21-year-old senior in college, and I figured I had been just accepted into the honors program, the psychology program at Columbia, invited into it, and I was still very much of the academic heightened path. That's what I was in high school. It was Columbia, so sort of taking the academic route was the route that just made sense. That was where I felt I had to go. So I was in that program and I realized, like, oh, it's like a lot of research. It's not exactly what I was hoping to get out of psychology, psychological education, but it is prestigious. It's Columbia. It's the honors program. I mean, it was just hitting every bar you should hit in terms of that ambitious path. But I realized it wasn't bringing me the joy, and I did love that TV show Survivor. I was a really big fan. I loved that there was the psychological aspect to it, the physical aspect, social, mental. It just felt like a real way to like challenge yourself in a unique way. And so I decided I would apply to Survivor, and that I would win $1 million and it would solve all my problems, and then I wouldn't need to worry about this career. Uh, and then I got rejected the first time I applied to Survivor, and that really surprised me. I mean, that's an off. I mean, I was
Because you were
wait,
always an overachiever.
I was an overachiever, so rejection. I was like, wait, what? So it was a good thing, a good lesson for a 21-year-old to learn. You have to learn
Right.
to deal with rejection,
Of course.
and I did end up dropping out of the honors program because it was a bit of a wake up call. When I didn't get on, I said, I need a plan. And my plan can't be unhappiness because I've got ideally a long life ahead of me. So I'm not going to spend it doing something I'm not passionate about. And so I did. It was the first time I really deviated from the academic path and left that honors program, still pursued the degree in psychology, but not with that honors distinction. And then the opportunity came to apply again for Survivor. I applied again. And this time, actually, I did end up getting on the show. So I
Right.
did get cast. I spent the summer after my college graduation competing on that show. And it was wild. It was truly, I mean, a bizarre experience. I sometimes equate it to feeling like a real life Alice in Wonderland. You're just in this weird world and everything is topsy turvy. You're with strangers, you're sleeping on the ground, you're competing these challenges, you're voting each other out. It was very bizarre. But you make these connections and you get these experiences and you just get this exposure to so much. And I was really young. I honestly probably was too young to really get the most out of it, I think. It was hard for me as a 22-year-old at that time to command the respect probably of the rest of the players. You're playing with people. There was a 65-year-old. I mean, it runs the whole gamut there. But the experiences I gained and the friends I made that still impact my life to this day really did change, I think, of course, the trajectory. I got to I got to just have this experience at such a young age that I knew there was just so much to behold in the world and so much you could do. And you just want more and more and more, as you get that.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot believe you did it because it takes a lot of guts to do it, first of all. And I'm sure there were strangers with you doing this also. So, like
What's that, sorry?
you had people with you who were doing the same thing with you. I mean, I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah. So it's the way Survivor works. There were 16 people placed in a. We were in the jungles of Guatemala, so we were
Right,
split into two groups of 8, and you're called tribes, and you live in the jungle. You compete against each other in these absurd challenges, and losing tribes have to go and eliminate one of their own members by a vote. And then it all, of course, airs on TV. So you have your experience, which and you lived it, and you were there 24 hours a day, sleeping. I lost 20 pounds in 15 days. I mean, it's really legitimately difficult. 114 degrees. I mean, there are crocodiles in the lake, tarantulas, scorpions crawling on you at night. So you have your lived experience of how the game played out, but then it airs later, and you
right,
get to see the interpretation for the television of like what story do they want to tell, how is this
right.
going to be edited, and that's another interesting lesson to learn at that age. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Hmm.
So now coming to the second most important aspect of your life, I would say, or your journey, you started teaching SAT as a teenager.
Hmm.
When did you realize this was your calling, and how have you grown in that role to make a meaningful impact on your students?
Excellent. So I did it part-time. When I got to Columbia, I saw a flyer. They were, at that time, the company that I worked for, Test Takers, did recruit back then from Columbia and Princeton, mainly for teachers. And I had done well in my SATs, and I thought it'd be a good way to kind of just make some money on the side during college. Applied, and I got that job. So that was really a part-time job, and I was used to working with slightly younger kids. I was a camp counselor during high school, and now I was really, at that time, 19, working with 15, 16-year-olds. So we were very, very close in age. Um, and I just found that I enjoyed explaining complex problems in simple ways. And I started as a math teacher. So getting students to sort of understand the logic and the reasoning behind the math, as opposed to just getting them to memorize the formulas for geometry or the quadratic equation, Pythagorean theorem, really getting them to learn how to think, because the SAT is such a different test. And I think
Mm,
that's a misconception a lot of parents have too. They think of it just as it's like a physics exam or a geometry test, where if you learn enough, you'll get 100% on it. It doesn't, I mean, I've been doing this now 20 something years. It doesn't work that way. It really is. One of the reasons it's so valuable to schools is it is testing something your GPA won't indicate. Your GPA will tell a school how good you are at studying, memorizing facts, reporting those facts back on the test. But the SAT, and the reason it's that one test score next to that GPA, which encompasses hundreds of tests, and then
mhm.
there's this one score of SAT, that one score is a more indication, not of how book smart you are, not of how intelligent you are, but it is, how do you think? Can you
Mm,
take in information and use information when presented to you? Can you solve complex tasks knowing that they're solvable, and seeing that there's often shortcuts to take that cut out the complexity of this if you're exercising a bit more logic and reasoning? And that's not a natural skill for a lot of students. It's not taught in high schools. And you do see the kids who are going to excel in, say, like a reading section. It's a really easy correlation. I'm like, oh, you're a kid who's like carried a book around you for the past 10 years, and you have a joy of reading and exposing yourself to the written word and tone and intonation and inflection, and you pick it up because it's just very
right.
natural to you. And teaching that, I found to be a fun challenge, more so than I would find if I were, again, a chemistry teacher just getting students to learn stoichiometry or learning the periodic table, which is it's just making sure they memorize the facts you're teaching them. And it wasn't my career. My career was going to be adolescent psychology. But then when I realized that wasn't kind of going the way I wanted, and when then I didn't win Survivor, I didn't win the $1 million, and I was like, oh, I need a plan. I kind of realized, wait, it's like here all along. It's been under my nose this whole time. Teaching SATs was really gratifying, and I felt good at it, and I felt like I could help in a way that made a difference for a lot of really stressed kids in a stressful time of their life, when I could be like, I think I can help you here. And I think help can navigate you, like see a bigger picture and understand that there's a life after this test. And we can navigate it within certain parameters to do what you need to do here.
Yeah, no, I agree because I think as parents, like, and we are from a different country, we didn't really know the system here,
Yeah.
school system.
Hmm.
For us, it's like, oh, you need to get a 1600. I think that's where you're, but we're
Yeah.
not really looking beyond.
Hmm.
So actually, that brings me to next question. I know you've answered half of it, but what is the biggest misconception you wish people knew about SAT?
Yeah, at first, the 1600 on the SAT, like you just referenced, that is less than 0.1% of students achieve that. And everyone wants to believe their kid is the smartest, the best kid, right? But it's not even the top 1% score 1600. It's not even the top half percent. It's less than 0.1. It's about 0.07% of kids will score 1600. And then even those kids who are scoring 1600, they might still get rejected from Harvard or Princeton if the rest of their application isn't
Right.
filled in. But I think the biggest misconception is, as I was saying, that you can pour enough time and push, and hit a 1600. The grading on the test is pretty harsh at the top of the exam. So one small error can really knock you down. It's not true of every test. Sometimes you can get one wrong and still have a perfect score. Different tests have different difficulty levels. They're all standardized. A big misconception is which test is easier. Like, oh, is March better than October? Total misconception. It has nothing to do with what month you take it in. Tests vary by difficulty by chance, which is why students end up taking the test several times. You kind of just hope to hit, like a slot machine, you hope to hit one that works for you. But they are all, the scoring tables are adjusted so that if a test is skewing harder, the scoring table will be more lenient, and vice versa. I tell my kids to help them understand. If I give two students two spelling tests and I give one kid 10 three-letter words and one kid 10 12-letter words, and they each get one wrong, yeah, you're not each a 90% speller. Like, you misspelled cat. Like, you misspelled diaphanous. There's a big difference in your ability. So they
Right.
adjust the scoring tables that way. But it really is not about knowledge. There are parts of the test. So there's some grammar, there's some vocab, and certainly some of the math. But the underlying value of the SAT is its ability to test your thinking, your reasoning, your logical approach to tasks, especially those dreaded reading passages, which is the bane of the first thing. You get the kids who hate the math. Like, that's one thing. And then there are kids who hate math. But of the high achieving kids, like your son, they often think the worst part of the test is the passages. And then you're like, yeah, you know why you think those are the worst part? Because you can't prep for them. There's no knowledge. You have to
Right.
be able to, you have to know how to take an information, exclude irrelevant stimuli, focus on what matters, apply logic cleanly and soundly, and no one taught you to do that in high school. And I can't just give you a book of things to memorize, which is your forte. You're like, well, I'm really book smart. Yeah, this is testing something else, and that's why you hate
Right.
this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. I do agree. I think that changed our perspective towards SAT too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's a great learning what you said.
Yeah.
So I think we've reached to the last question.
Mm-hmm.
You built financial stability through your work and
Mm-hmm.
profoundly influenced countless students. Looking ahead, how do you see your future evolving? And what kind of legacy do you hope to leave through your teaching and mentorship?
Yeah, it's really gratifying when you hear back from students years later. So I'll get a random email out of nowhere from a kid I taught. Now they're in college and they say, oh, I was thinking of you because my college professor misused the word me and they should have said I, or vice versa. And I remember your lesson about that and how you made it make sense. And I'm like, like I left an impact on that kid, and that feels really good. Business wise, I've been doing this for a long time now. I've got 2 decades in here of SAT prep, and I think I'm a rare millennial who has stuck with one job since
Yes.
I started this freshman year of college as part time, and I've done this now throughout my 20s and 30s, and I think most of my friends have had 7 careers at this point. So I know that I like this job. It gives me intellectual stimulation. It gives me gratification that I'm helping students, and I've been in long enough that it's provided financial stability in a way that is obviously something you would like from a job. So I feel very good about what I do. In terms of my impact, I do a lot of the material production for the company. So I'm not really, it's funny, tutoring I do, but that's not my primary role. I think sometimes too people assume like, oh, you're a tutor, and they think I'm probably like a 24-year-old who's just free all the time. I'm like, well, actually, I have a full-time job. I work and I do a lot of material production. So I write the questions, I do the research, which take hours and hours to be done well. And I feel like I can do that and I can leave a really good impact on quality materials to help not only myself, but the teachers we employ use those materials to also help students, again, navigate a process that's really stressful for a lot of families. And just getting kids to sort of understand, listen, we can help, but also there is a bigger picture here too. And that's why it's so much more gratifying to have students leave my class thinking that they are able to think more clearly and understand logic better, which will serve them in many places in life beyond the SAT.
I agree. And I think I asked this regarding the financial stability. I was actually curious myself. I was like, how can you make money out of this? But then you told me you work so hard and you are so good at it. You never had that problem. And then it made me think, yeah, that's true. If you have a passion and you can actually use it to your full capacity, then you can
Yeah.
be just fine, right?
Yes, I know. My mother
And then
and
you also told me about the students reaching out to you even after they're done SATs, years after. So talk to me about the reach. The students are reaching out to you
yeah,
after they're
yeah.
done.
You do. You hear, and I live in New York City, so occasionally even you'll run into a kid on the subway, and you'll be sitting on the subway, and you're like, I know you, and they're like, you were my SAT teacher, and that's happened over the years, and I'm like, wow. It's funny because the classes that we run, they're really 2-month programs. So a high school teacher is going to be with this kid 5 days a week, 180 days. Most of these kids I see once or twice a week for 2 months. So I'm seeing them really a dozen or so times. And then for them to like remember my face years later on a subway and be like, you're my SAT teacher. It's like, oh man, that feels good. It means like you appreciated my class and you learned from me. And I did leave an impact, even though it was just that kind of brief moment. And I think it is because what I'm teaching has a bigger implication. So those emails you get from the kids who say, oh, I was thinking of you, this lesson you taught stuck with me years later. Yeah, that's awesome. That's an awesome thing to get. A kid took his time out of college to write me an email. That is, woof. That is rare. Yeah, like that's nice.
No, I agree. And when my son came to me and he like before even we thought about the podcast thing, and he was like, Mom, he's a goat. You have to talk to him. He's amazing. He's so superb and everything because he had that impact on him
That's
from
awesome.
you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you so much for talking with us.
My pleasure.
And I actually end this podcast with something very nice. I think when you teach someone how to think, you change their life beyond one test. And I really think you're doing that. And I wish you keep on doing it and changing the lives of these students who really need help, with your
Yeah, I
guidance.
appreciate that. Yeah, it's my joy. It's my passion. It is. So I thank you. Yeah,
Thank you, Brian.
my pleasure. Thanks for having me.